Hey friends, welcome back to my 5 meals for $5 series. In this video, I'll go to the market and spend $5 on groceries, and then I'll try to make 5 meals. And because of inflation, I'll allow myself $5 and some change, but it has to be under $6. I want the meals to be fairly simple because I don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And as always, I'll be using basic items from my kitchen like oil, salt, pepper, seasonings, etc. Today I spent a total of $5.96, so it's a little more than I wanted to spend, but I'm still under $6, so I did meet my goal. I picked up this French bread. I thought that this would be great in several different uses. I could possibly make some pizza. I could also use it to make some sandwiches, and I could also make some garlic toast to go along with some spaghetti. And you guys know I love spaghetti. There are a ton of ways that I can make that, just with the change of a few ingredients. And then I picked up this tomato sauce. I can make a marinara with this very easily, and that can go on the pizza. I could also use that in the spaghetti. I also have made some soup out of that before, but I'm probably not going to do that this time. And then I got this shredded mozzarella. They also sell a pizza blend, but I didn't see that when I was there. But that basically just has the mozzarella and then some orange blends like some cheddar cheese. And then I found this very tiny tomato, which I'll be using in a couple different ways. And then I got this zucchini. I remember making a delicious baked zucchini dish, maybe it was a couple of years ago. It was so delicious. I thought I'd make that again. Anyway, here is my haul, and I just want to get 5 meals out of this. And the goal is for 5 easy meals that I'm not in the kitchen for very long cooking, just super simple to make, and meals that I know that I'll look forward to eating. And I'm going to start off by making a marinara. That's probably the most time consuming of all of the meals that I'm making. So I'll go ahead and get that started. And I just added all of the spices that I like, but obviously just add whatever you have. The tomato sauce already has some salt in there, so I'm going to wait till the very end to see if I need to add some more. And one of the reasons I like making marinara is it always turns out so good. And I'm going to add some oil to this, which marinara always does have oil in it. It helps to give it that velvety mouth feel. It's just really adds a lot. And then I always add just a touch of sugar, especially since I'm going to be using this also on some pizza. I'm going to use this several ways. I'm not quite sure all the ways yet, but I definitely know that I want to use this as a pizza sauce. So then I just let it simmer for a good long while to develop all of those flavors, and then I tasted it and decided I did need just a touch more salt. So I actually grabbed the Cavender's bottle, which is a little bit of a seasoning blend with salt, and just added a touch of that in there. And then this is ready to go. I removed it from the heat, and now I'm going to make my first dinner, and that's going to be pizza. And I love French bread pizzas. These are so good to me because they're so fluffy on the inside, but then they get crispy on the outside, which is generally what I like in a pizza crust. And this is just a super inexpensive way to do it. I'm going to save this last piece here for some other uses. I'm not quite sure yet what, but I want to make 2 pizzas in this menu for 2 pizza nights. So I'm going to cut each one of these in half, and then that will be for each night. Now I'm going to put this in the air fryer and just lightly toast this. But obviously if you have a toaster oven, then just use the toaster oven. Or you could broil in the oven. And the reason I'm doing this is just so that this marinara doesn't seep too far down into the bread. I want it to kind of sit on the top. That'll allow us to use less of this, and it'll just result in a better pizza. Otherwise it might be soggy. And then I'm going to add my mozzarella cheese. They also sell a pizza blend that has a little bit of the mild cheddar mixed in, but they were out of that. But this is going to be great. This mozzarella is a great melter, and it's going to be delicious. My only question is, do I cook the tomatoes on, or do I want to have them fresh? I like them both ways, and I'm not sure which one I prefer. And I go through the same question every time I make pizza. I'm going to slice this super thin because I only have this very tiny tomato, and I know I'm going to want to make lots of different things with it. So I just decided to go half and half. So on one piece, I'll try with the cooked tomatoes, and the other I'll add 2 fresh tomatoes on the top. So I'm going to bake this in the air fryer, and I ended up putting this on the bottom at first, and then one of my tomatoes stuck to the roof. And so I pulled it out and put it in the top of this air fryer. My air fryer has 2 sections. One's like a little baking area on the bottom, but you can also bake on the top. Anyway, I just keep having trouble with that one tomato. Anyhow, I let this cook a little longer. I like my cheese to be a nice golden brown on top. And so this is perfect right here. I'm just going to add a little bit of parsley to the top. And then I'm going to add my fresh tomatoes. And just a few sprinkles of this red pepper. All right, this looks so good to me, you guys. I'm starving, so I'm gonna go ahead and try this. The cheese is golden brown on the top, exactly the way I like it. And it is, see how fluffy it is still in the middle? It's crispy on the outsides, and you've got that chewy kind of fluffiness on the inside. This is so good. We are starting out this week right. The first meal is fabulous, and this is so, it was filling. I mean, bread is filling, right? But it also does have quite a bit of protein in the cheese. For a quick, easy meal on an extreme budget, I will eat this every night of the week. This is something that I look forward to eating again. I've got this much marinara left over. I'm going to go ahead and keep that in the fridge. There are lots of different ways I can use that. I showed you earlier this little piece that I was keeping out, and today I'm going to cut this into 3 sections because I'm planning to use the spaghetti for like 3 meals. I'm going to make some garlic toast tonight, and according to this spaghetti box makes 8 servings. If you know me, you know I eat more than 1 serving of spaghetti. And since there are 16 ounces in here and we're planning for 3 meals, that means you could have just over 6 ounces each night. So tonight I'm going to cook almost 4 ounces. And as per usual, I'm cooking this in salted water so that it's already seasoned when it comes out of the pan. This series is all about quick and easy dinners, and I got home from work and I just wanted to get dinner ready as quick as possible, and I remembered this zucchini bake that I made a couple years ago that I loved so much. So I decided to make a garlic spaghetti and then do a baked zucchini on the side. I have all of the ingredients and I'll just be using a very small amount of my tiny tomato. And the only seasonings I'll be using are parsley, garlic powder, and I've already used salt and then some pepper. And then of course I'll be using some oil. I'm just gonna brush my zucchini and my garlic toast and pop these in the air fryer. I do like to add just a touch of garlic salt to my garlic toast and to my zucchini. But if you want to just use straight garlic to your bread, you can do that as well. And this is how much zucchini I have left over for my next meals. I'm just going to try to use as little of this tomato as possible. This is going to go into my garlic spaghetti. And I decided to put these in just a little bit longer, and this is perfect. I wanted to have a little bit of body to the zucchini, so I don't want it to be so dehydrated that it's not juicy when I bite into it. And this is just perfect. I've been sauteing these tomatoes, and this is garlic powder that I'm adding to this. Normally I would be sauteing some diced garlic cloves in here along with the tomatoes and whatever else I have on hand. But instead I'm just substituting the garlic pepper, and it'll work just fine here. I also added just a few sprinkles of red pepper just to give it a little spice, and then I added in the pasta water. That's going to have that starch, and it's going to make this more of a sauce and kind of cling to the noodles. And actually I probably used more than I needed here. If it's ever too much, you can always boil it down and condense it for a while, and this is actually about perfect. You can taste this and see if you need to adjust the seasonings. My spaghetti noodles are done, and they are perfectly seasoned because I boiled these in salted water. So now I'm just going to combine this in the pan with the sauce, and we should be good to go. My zucchini bake is done, and it looks so delicious. I am excited to eat this. You know, anytime I have cheese in these extreme budgets, it doesn't feel like budget food to me. It just feels so luxurious. And my plate actually didn't fit on here, so I just decided to add it in with the spaghetti, which is actually great because some of my bites will have a little bit of that marinara on them. And first I'm going to try the garlic spaghetti, and that is fabulous. It's so flavorful, just a couple simple ingredients, but yet so much flavor when you cook it properly. And then this zucchini, I actually think that's my favorite way to eat zucchini. And like I said, I love the way it mixed in, the marinara on one side and the garlic on the other. And then I showed you the tomatoes that I had left over. For this week's menu, I kept it to a few basic meals that I really love, but I did want to show you some possibilities. You could use that can of tomato sauce to make tomato soup like I did here. And then I also had used French bread in the past to make a grilled cheese, which I had kind of thought about making a grilled cheese with mozzarella, which I think would be really good. Here I just kind of made an unusual shape, but it really was delicious. And all I did was thin out the tomato sauce with all of those seasonings in there, and it was a perfect soup. And then here was another one I was thinking about. During this episode, I made these little zucchini sticks, and then I dipped them in the marinara. The ones on the left were some that just had the spices. I think I added some Italian seasoning and basil and like salt and pepper. And then I also sprayed these with some oil, but you could obviously just, brush it on as well. And then for half of those, I added some breadcrumbs, and I think I was trying to see which ones I liked better. And I think I liked the ones with just the spices just as well. And I actually got that tip from a comment from a viewer that said how much she just enjoys eating those plain with some spices, and she throws them in the air fryer. So that would have been another thing that we could have made with this week's ingredients. However, I really wanted to save all of that zucchini to eat with my spaghetti. And actually we could have made breadcrumbs with a small piece of the bread as well. But here is what these look like. Again, I think I like the ones on the left just as much as the ones on the right, if not more actually. I agree with my viewer. They really don't need to have breadcrumbs. Okay, and then I wanted to show you this other meal that I made. If you guys remember, this was actually already a couple years ago, but Stanley Tucci had this really delicious zucchini spaghetti when he was in Italy, and he just goes on and on about it, but it's a super long process to where you deep fry all of the zucchini, then you put it in a bowl overnight, and then the next day you cook it, and then it kind of caramelizes and makes this very thick, rich sauce. And really what happens to the flavor of the zucchini after cooking it that long is it just becomes very sweet and caramelized. And it does make a very nice thick sauce. However, it was very time consuming, and I do eat a lot of zucchini spaghetti, and I just don't know if it's worth all of the time. But then again, maybe it's because I didn't master the recipe exactly. I wouldn't mind going to Italy and trying that in one of the restaurants. But I wanted to mention these other ways to use these ingredients just in case you decided to do this, and you could do like a mini version of this. And here is another time that I just made some zucchini spaghetti, and obviously I have a little parmesan on that. And here's the third meal that I made, and I made this after work for dinner, and this is just a repeat of the last meal. I liked it so much that I wanted to eat that again. And then I wanted to show you this other thing that you can do with the zucchini if you want, with basically just mozzarella and zucchini. And I got this idea actually from one of my viewers. I just brushed it with a little oil and added some salt and pepper. And then my viewer just microwaves this, and this is what it turns out like, and it was really delicious like this. But then I thought I would like it better if I added it under the broiler, so I did that, and then I got my cheese to the consistency that I wanted, and I thought that this was really good. You could also eat this along with some marinara or some other kind of sauce, but this is a great low carb snack. For my fourth meal, I fried up some zucchini slices with garlic salt to add to my spaghetti, and then I would have that on one side and the marinara on the other. I took this for my lunch for work on Friday, and I just made some garlic toast, and I had a little bit of marinara on the side that I thought I would go ahead and add to my toast along with some cheese and make some kind of garlic toast with cheese on it, which I sometimes like to have. But my friend at work was talking to me when I was microwaving my bread, and I let it go a little bit too long. It just kind of spilled over the edges, but that was okay. It was delicious with this. That cheese just gives it that extra richness and helps to add a lot more interest to this meal. I really enjoyed this lunch, actually, a lot more than I thought, and it doesn't look like as much food in this little container, but it was the exact same amount that I was eating in with those big plates. And I had just been a part of a pizza fundraiser, and we had these little Parmesan cheese left over, and it just really added a lot to that meal. Okay, we are down to the last meal. These are my remaining ingredients. It's Friday evening, and I thought it would be great to kick off the start of my weekend with a pizza, especially since I like that first one so much. But I'm afraid that I don't have enough marinara left over, and I had the tiniest amount of tomato. So I decided to go ahead and chop up the zucchini, and I sliced that tomato, but in the end, I ended up chopping that tomato as well. I love that you can make these super cheap and delicious French bread pizzas. They just come together so easily. I decided to add the fresh tomatoes on at the end. I almost burned it, but I didn't. Just a few seconds longer. I ended up adding this to my air fryer and baking it, but then I turned on the broil because I wanted the top to get crispier. And it was still nice and fluffy on the inside and crispy on the outside. I also would have liked this with a little crystal hot sauce on the top, but I'm currently out of that. You could add some pepperoni here. My son really liked this as well. He had a bite, and then he asked me if I had any more of that bread left over, because I think he wanted to make one for himself, and I felt so bad because this was the last piece, and I let him know I was doing an extreme budget challenge. I offered him this, but he didn't want it. I don't think he likes tomatoes or zucchini, so that's probably why. Anyway, I did enjoy this week's menu. I think that for $5, you can definitely get 5 meals that fill you up and that tastes delicious. And if you can think of any 5 meals for $5 that would be great for this series, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next week.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my